We have the pricing for the new Nissan Z, and it is pretty up there with $65,000 without any options. That got me thinking, what kind of options do you have if you have 65 grand to spend on a sports car? And one car in particular came up in my mind, and that is the Porsche 911 Carrera 4S from 2002 to 2004. One of my favorite 911s in recent times, and I do know that a lot of people don't like it because of the front end, the headlights, but I think that's actually a good thing. I think it's cool they tried something new, and it also brings the prices down because people don't like that. So what we're going to do in this video, have a look at this article, two articles from Car and Driver, one covering the new pricing that just dropped for the Nissan Z. It's not official, it's just leaked pricing, but it's probably going to be this type of price for the Z. And then we're going to have a look at the article from back in the day, from the archives of the 911 Carrera 4S. And then compare the two designs from the front, side, rear, and also the interior. So first of all, let's have a look at this. So 2024 Nissan Z Nismo expected to start north of $66,000. Pricing for the new high-performance Nismo model appears to have leaked online, with the sport and performance models rising. Also, those models are going up by $1,220. Pricing for the new Nismo starts over $65,000 for 2024. Pricing, as I said, for the performance and trim goes up as well, and the sport now starts at $53,305. The Nismo will carry a starting price of $66,085, though it also mentioned that floor mats, illuminated kick plates, and door guards are required options. So you need to check those boxes, and that is an additional $1,120 over the standard MSRP. Now, under the hood, Nissan fiddled around with the twin-turbo 3-liter V6. You have 420 horsepower, 384 pound-feet of torque. Unfortunately, it only comes with a 9-speed automatic transmission, and Nissan claims that this is done because the Return the Engine management software provides quicker downshifts. But here's the thing, like if you buy a car like this, and you're not going to be on the you're going to be on the roads for 99.5% of the time, 99.9% of the time. You don't really care about a quick downshifts. If that means, you know, how many milliseconds slower if you add it with a manual transmission. The manual transmission is not just about lap times and how quick the car can go. It's about the connection with the vehicle. And I think that's a big mistake by Nissan to just have a 9-speed auto in this car. So let's have a look at my option for this type of price range. Now we're going to show you actual listings of this specific 911 and what they go for these days with relatively low mileage, not any crap 200,000 mile cars, actual nice cars off the Porsche 911 Carrera 4S. So this is from as you can see, this is from the archives. I mean, just have a look at these pictures. It's from 2002. It's a lot of pixels going on here, but I'm going to show you better images, of course, in Photoshop. So the C4S, as they called it internally within Porsche, is a new take on the all-wheel drive 911. Is a flat-out gorgeous car. Completely agree with that. Classic turbo 911 proportions. The big news is the turbo-style flared rear quarters, adding visual heft, and it also adds 2.4 inches of width compared to the normal Carrera. So you have the Porsche details, graphics, and width on this beautiful car. And the rear tires are 295 millimeter wide tires. This, in addition to these beautiful fenders that we're gonna have a look at in Photoshop, just makes this such a gorgeous car. The only thing that's missing compared to the turbo is the big turbo wing in the back here. You also don't have the intake on the side because you don't have an intercooler to feed. And what's make this special to me, the 4S, is that you have this red reflector light in the rear end, making it look more classic Porsche to me. It has the turbo wheels and tires, the large turbo brakes, the turbo suspension, and the turbo's all-wheel drive that delivers 5 to 40% of the driving torque to the front wheels. You also have the 315 horsepower 3.6 liter from the normal 911, so you don't get the turbo power, but you basically get the turbo visuals here, which is fantastic. 0 to 60 in about 5.1 seconds. And the base price when this was new for the 6-speed manual was $82,254. So with that said, let's go in here and let's look at both these beauties when it comes to design. I do think that Nismo or Nissan did a great job with the new Nismo, just making it a little more organic in the front end. As you can see, this opening that we have right here now looks not as static as it does on the normal non-Nismo version of the Z. They added some more styling. We have some fins cutting in to this intake, and we also have this beautiful piece on the side, in addition to this red borderline that goes across or lower section of the entire length of the car, even coming back in the rear end, which we didn't have in the previous Z. Just looking great, but I want you to keep in mind that this is going to cost you around like $69,000 when everything is said and done out the door. It's a pretty expensive car for a Nissan. Now you can have this Porsche 911. Let me show you a couple of listings first, so you can actual proof what these Porsches go for these days. So I have, these are the filters, used Porsche 911 Carrera 4S, $50,000 to $70,000, 50,000 miles or less. And this is what you get. Have a look at this beautiful red right here. Red just looks fantastic on this model. And here's one with 23,000, barely 24,000 miles for $54,000. So let's go in and check this out. It looks fantastic. You do have some Martini graphics on it. Not sure I'm a huge fan of that. I would probably remove that. But the silver, the turbo wheels look all original. The turbo brakes back here. So looking at the price range, you can definitely get one of these instead of the new Nismo, Nissan Z Nismo. And let me know which one you would pick. I love these wheels as well. This is one for 70, so it's in the upper range, but you do get these beautiful wheels and this darker silver trim with the sport exhaust, as you can see. And we still have, of course, this being the 4S, having this reflector light in the rear end. And this is, of course, a manual as well. I do like the black interior with the white dials. So the pricing for this type of Porsche under 50,000 miles is less or about the same as we have for the new Nissan Z. It's worth considering which one you would pick. You can even get the newer ones, the 2009, which I actually prefer the older ones, the 2004 4S over the new ones. I do just prefer the older designs better than when we have in the generation that came after this. But let's have a look at this design. So you have the Porsche lower section here. As you can see, this entire bumper is completely the same as the Porsche 911 Turbo with these beautiful intakes, very classic looking design. I love this design because this is sort of childhood memories for me when this came out. I remember going to car shows in Stockholm, and they had the brand new 911, which was this generation, on display, and I was so in love with these cars. They looked so cool. But here we have the headlights with this piece of reflector light that sticks in like this. And this is something that traditional Porsche enthusiasts did not like. They wanted to have round headlights, but this definitely looks way better than the 1998 version. It had this called egg design, where you have this sort of the orange piece down here. Beautiful Porsche. And then we have the side view. Up top we have the Nissan Z, obviously, with this Z line, meaning that we have this sharp cut line up here, sharp corner up top, going straight down. It never really comes back up. We do have an additional added spoiler back here, but that's not part of the bodywork itself. Bringing back these classic Nissan Z240Z lines, which I absolutely love. I do still think that this is a beautiful looking car. But when it comes up to $70,000 for a Nissan Z, you have a lot more options to play around with, and that's exactly what we're doing here in this video with the 911 Carrera 4S. And then you have these wheels. Not a huge fan of the black wheels on the Z because, as I said before, you can't see the design of these wheels. I want to appreciate, or be given the opportunity to appreciate the spoke designs of the wheels. But when the wheel is black, you can't see it because the light doesn't reflect enough of the black spokes, so you can't really see the design here. But overall, great design by Nissan to create the new Z. I made so many videos on this already. And having a look at this, what's interesting about this generation Porsche 911, and the ones that came before this, but after this, what they did is they stretched the wheelbase a lot. If you look at this and compare this to the newer generation Porsche 911, it has a much longer wheelbase. than what we have here. We don't have these rather big overhangs like we had in this generation, as you can see, both front and rear. So you can see just how far in the wheels sit here. But I think that makes it looks unique, and it also makes it very, very nimble in the corners when you have a short wheelbase like this. And then, of course, typical Porsche graphics with this beautiful greenhousing going down in the rear end. You have this active wing in the 4S that pops up at certain speeds, and you also have the classic taillights of this generation 911 with the white up top, and then you also have the reflector lights. Here you can see the Porsche, I think these are 18-inch wheels, the turbo wheels that are actually hollow. So the spokes of these wheels are hollow to save weight, which is very cool. And I also think they look fantastic in the silver with the silver body. Just a classic look. You can see that we have the same turbo outlets or vents back here in the rear fender, looking fantastic, adding some more sportiness and aggressiveness to this design compared to a normal Carrera, in addition to the added width. Now, this is by far my favorite views of both of these two cars. I think they look fantastic. This definitely, as you can see, 20 years later, look a lot more modern, of course, than the 2004 Carrera 4S. But the 4S, the 911 down here, it still has a very timeless design. It's just a stunning car. Up top, we have the black roof for the Z. And you also have this 300ZX inspired taillights, as you can see, in a modern touch. We also have a new diffuser for the Nismo, which sticks up a little further than it does on the regular Nissan Z. Looking great. And then we have this red piece at the lower section by the diffuser and the two dual exhausts on each side. Looking great. It's a great looking car again, and I think the Nismo plants the car a little better thanks to this graphics that we have going around the sides. And then looking at this 911 4S down here, just a stunning design. And what Porsche does so well is to just plant their cars, because we have this big hips. So we have this line right here, this volume going into this massive fender right here on the side, creating a big, beautiful muscle, and there is not a single sharp line anywhere to be seen in the side of this car, and just creates a very classic, timeless looking design. Imagine if you had this these proportions and these volumes, just added some modern lights in the front and the rear. It could look like a car that came from 2023. This view, when you have it in a more like a rear view than this, it's just one of the best looking views of any car, in my opinion, the Porsche 911 from this era. And then you have, of course, the interiors. And this is where you're definitely going to feel like you're sitting in a 20-year-old car. But the thing is, I don't think that is a bad thing at all, because I think we're starting to, we're crossing the border to go into way too much technology in cars. It's not about the driving anymore, it's about the technology. And what that does, it makes the cars more like consumer electronics than what they used to be back in the day, 20 years ago, for example, in this case. But I still like the integration of the interior on the Nissan Z, because we do have physical buttons down here, as you can see, dials and buttons. We do have a housing for the gauge cluster with a nice digital display, vents in a pretty, traditional locations, and we also have a couple of additional gauges up top on the dash. However, look here, this is the only option you get with the Nissan Z Nismo, is the 9-speed automatic transmission. A big mistake by Nissan for sure. Now looking at the I believe this is a 2004 911 Carrera 4S. I'm not so sure about this light gray interior. I would much rather have it in black. But look at the dials and look at this section here. We have a manual transmission. Everything is focusing on the drive and the driving experience, and it hasn't tilted over to technology yet back in 2004, which it has today in many cases, even in sports cars. So if you consider these features that we talked about here of the 911, the design, the timeless design, the interior, the turbo wheels and graphics that you have on the 4S, which one would you pick? If you had a budget of $65,000, would you buy a 2004 Carrera 4S, or would you go for the automatic only Nissan Z Nismo?